Hey, and welcome to video number 7. We're going to talk about layers. Layers make your life easier as a person who is editing graphics. So graphic designers love layers just because with layers you can move objects around, you can move objects behind an object, in front of an object, and you can just do a lot of stuff much easier. So in the previous videos I talked about the basics of, adding one layer and this and that. But now I want to show you the full potential of layers. So under the section we have layers. You can add a layer, you can delete a layer, you can duplicate a layer, you can merge a layer down, you can import a layer from a file. Say you want to move this layer to a different file, you can do that. And you can do other things like that. Now, I'm actually going to walk you through step by step on exactly what do all of these mean. So what I want to do is I'm going to use this previous example where we remove this object or this little fellow here with his books from the background. And I want to place him on a different background. Now, of course, add a new layer. Basically, like I kind of mentioned earlier, layers are basically layers. So imagine you have 10 sheets of transparent plastic sheets, and on each of those sheets you have text, you have images, you have so forth. So with that, you can move it, you can put it in order, you can put one in front of the other and so forth. For example, if I were to put this background or this layer, this black layer above, what that means is whatever is on the top is on the top. Whatever is at the bottom is the bottom. So if I were to move this to the top, and then of course you have a black sheet layer on top of this person here. Now Paint.net does give you the ability to unselect layers. For example, let's say I create a layer, but I don't want to see that layer at the moment. Then I can uncheck this box. And then of course I can move them back down here. And if I want to flatten the image or merge these two layers together, this is what this link is. It merges the layer down. So if I were to merge the layer down here, that becomes one layer, but I don't want to do that, so I'm going to click on to go back with the history here. This duplicates a layer. Basically that means that, let's say I want two guys. So all I have to do is make sure that I select the layer that I want to duplicate of, click on duplicate, and as you can see here I've got two layers. So the only time you would want to use this is, of course, if in your graphic design you want to use two of them. So as you can see, I've got two guys here. So let's say, for example, that I want to move this guy over. What I can do is click at this here and then click back here, and I can move him back and forth. So I could move him over here, and then I could move his little friend here. Select that here. And I found if you're messing with layers, you might want to use the selection tool and just click there and do that. And of course, if you ever make any mistakes, you can always go back to here. Now, if you want to import a layer from a file, you can do that. Let's say, for example, I'm going to just save this file. And then, let's see, you want to make sure that you know where that file is located. And then let's say that I'm going to create a brand new photo, and let's say that I'm going to make it's 1000. So that's what that layer looks like. I'm going to zoom out. And let's say that I want to take that layer of that little guy and just plop him in here. What I could do is go to Layers, Import from File, and find that layer. And it's test.pdn. And what that does is it just imports all of those layers into that file. So let's say, for example, that I am creating a header, and I'm actually going to use this in the header example. Let's say I want to import him into the header. I can do that. And then the layers that I do not want, I can simply select and delete them, or just uncheck them as well. And of course you can mess around with the layer itself. You can resize the layer. And if you want to keep, let's say for example, what maintain aspect ratio means is, let's say I resize it to 500. If you notice carefully, this did not change, which just means that this is going to squeeze in, it's not going to look right. So I'm going to go back to the original number and click on maintain aspect ratio, which basically means that if I change this, this number will change as well. So that resizes it, but I don't want to resize it, so I'm just going to leave it as is. And you can also import other images as well. Let's say I want to add a layer, and I'm going to add this layer here, and this layer will be an image. So what I like to do is simply find a picture. Let's see here. Let's say that we're going to add him to this domino piece. And whenever you drag a new picture in and you're working with layers, add it as a layer. Don't just open the file. So you need to add it as a layer. So you just need to get used to layers and working with layers. Now, as you can see here, this layer is on top of the other layers. And what I want to do is simply push this layer down until this little guy is on the top. And remember to select the selection box and then go back here, and then you can move them around. So one thing I could do is I could even tweak it so that it looks like he's tipping over these dominoes. And to do that, as long as your layer is selected, then I can go in, let's see, I can zoom in, and then I can basically just select the books. So I'm going to just, as normal, I'm just going to select the books. And you know, because only I'm selecting this layer itself, it's not going to affect the other layers. So if I press delete, you'll notice that everything is being deleted except, not part of that picture is being deleted. And as you can see here, that's the way to go. And I'm just going to have to go inside and do some tweaks and, you know, delete those things around his hand. But if I go zoom back out, actual size, zoom out, As you can see, I've pretty much manipulated the photo so it looks like he is pushing over the dominoes pieces. See how neat that is? And that was because the beauty of layers, that made my life a lot easier. Now, a good practice to do is once you're done with a photo is to only keep the layers that are part of that picture. So I did not use this layer, so I'm going to delete it just to keep everything clean. And then, let's see, I'm just going to leave that as is. And I could add another layer for text and so forth. So the whole idea here is to use layers as much as possible and make it nice and neat so that you only are using layers that you want to be using. So let's say, for example, that I want to remove the background on all those layers and just place this little guy with the dominoes on a different background. To do that, simply watch the video before, and it's really easy just to use this magic wand tool, and go through the process of doing that. So that's the video on layers. One last thing I want to say about layers in Paint.net is if you click on layers and click on layer properties, and depending on the layer that you choose, that specific layer you can turn the opacity up, which basically makes it like this so that there's no background here. And I can do the same thing. Press OK. I click on this layer properties, and then do that too. And I can play around with the magic wand hand, and that's it. So that's how to use layers, and as you can see, it's very, very easy to use. In the next video, I'm going to talk about plugins, and then the video after that, I'm going to talk about headers and banners, and how you can perhaps even take this photo here and make a header and a banner out of that by using the technique of layers.